man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, that was its name. So Adam gave names to all the cattle, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper comparable to him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of the ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Then the rib which the Lord God had taken out from the man, he made into a woman. And he brought her to the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called Isha, for she was taken out of Ish. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Let me just pluck your brain a little bit on what you heard. What was the God image, the God picture that you saw in me reading that? What were some of the images? Anything different from one?
For me, it was a little different because it told the rivers, and if you notice on the map, those rivers are all over they're not just in one stationary spot. So it assisted me in understanding that God was just not neutralized to where creation was taking place, but he was everywhere around him. Everything was affected by what God said, because he said this river went that way, and that went this way. So water will go wherever it's shown to go. So just like the water goes, God will go, because he created the
where
water.
he created the water, in fact, the garden that he created was this beautiful place. And when you think about water, think about where they lived. Where do they live?
Garden. In a garden.
In a garden. What makes something a garden?
Vegetation.
Life.
Water.
Vegetation. Why vegetation?
Because the vegetation is getting
Because
life.
there's water. And you think in the Middle East, and there's a lot of deserty areas, when water shows up, life
Things
shows
start to
up.
grow.
And so he put the man in a place of life. With beauty. I mean, look at it. It was like gold there, and bdellium, and the onyx stones were beautiful, and the description is paradise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, everything so far, and looking at, it seems so peaceful and beautiful. And, oh, wow. Doesn't even seem real. But then it's like when you get right here, when he's talking about how he puts this tree.
Oh,
And then he introduces,
okay.
it just seems like he introduced, I'm not saying God is evil, don't
No,
record
no, I understand.
it just seems like, why would he put a tree of knowledge and of good and evil?
That's a good question.
I like
Now
that.
let me say
I like
this.
that.
What do we know about God from his character so far?
God of love.
And
Choice.
God of life.
Yeah, life.
Now we're all good theologians, especially Adventist theologians.
Hold on, wait, I'm missing it. I missed the whole thing.
It's extending community too.
He was extending community too. And can you unpack that a little?
Okay, in chapter 1 we see that God was he was creating things, and he counseled. And when we created man, he counseled, the Godhead counseled in the parameters of man what he'd be like, and what he would do, his value and everything, and his dominion. He's extending that community, saying, hey, these people are going to be like me. I mean, that's a huge thing, because God is bigger than...
Look at everything else he created, and humans had his image, and that's the only thing we find that does. His bears his specific image and likeness. But further, let me address that, because that used to get in my craw all the time. It's like you're floating along really nice, and then
Boom.
that tree shows up. And it's But I want you to think larger for a second. Remember the God, we talked about this God from Genesis 1? And we said something about being a planner, intention, will, life. We said that at the very beginning, he already saw where he was headed. Maybe our understanding of that tree is erroneous. Maybe God was doing something so different that we see it, that tree as death, don't we?
Yep. 'Cause that's
What
we
if the
associate
God,
with.
who is the God of life, planted that tree, and he was going to use that tree to bring life? What if he was preparing for something, an event that was going to happen, that he would then take that tree and use it, eventually what that tree was about, for life? And so, you've got to put that on hold, because this is way different. If we know the God, what's the God who is God? What's the value of humanity to him? So,
God
priceless
sucks.
treasures. So, in planting that tree, not only was he protecting, but I think he was going to preempt someone who was coming on the scene. And I'll have to, it'll take a longer explanation than we have right now, but I'm just getting your reaction. So, the God picture that you see in chapter 2, how is it different, or how does it progress from chapter 1? What is it that makes that unique and builds on what chapter 1 is? Yes?
Now that he's created humanity, he extends the responsibility of doing something to Adam and placing identity in creation. So he gets to name the animals.
Ah, so we see Adam naming animals an example of what? Participation, but how? What does it show? Authority, so it shows bearing the image of God, because who else was naming things?
God.
God was, and whatever that was its name, because he called it. What does that actually show?
We didn't evolve.
What?
Intelligence.
I was thinking about
We didn't
scientific
evolve.
evolution theory, but-
No, but what does it show when you can name something?
Intelligence.
Image, we were created in the image and likeness of identity.
Right.
So,
But we become identity givers, like God. That shows ownership, doesn't it?
right.
So God was not afraid of sharing dominion. In fact, God is a dominion sharer. Further, though, when we get into chapter 2, we see a different picture of God, and that is, it says, there was a time when there was no man to cultivate, and a mist went up, and then God is shown much more intimately involved. And here's how. What does he do to create man? What does it say he does? He takes the dust of the earth. Now I want you to picture, get the picture here. He takes the dust of the earth and he shapes this. Yatzah. He fashions. And he takes it, so he's hands-on there, right? Like a sculptor, like an artist at work. But hands-on means you are involved. And then he does what after he shapes this? Breathes into the human's nostrils, the man's nostrils, what? Breath of life. Now I want you to think about this. What life does he breathe into humanity? His own life. In fact, when it says breath of life there, you could write down breath of lives, because that is where life began. And every life that would come in would be a multiplication of that one life. So the life that he put in Adam, all of us are, we derive our lives from our parents, who derive their lives from their parents, who derive their lives, and you go back, and where do you end up coming to? Adam. So the breath of life that started there, we are all a multiplication of that one breath of life. And it's the breath of life from God himself. So what does that say about the value that God holds for humans? This is
It's
a very
intimate.
intimate picture of God, isn't it? The kiss of life. That's the image here. That he creates us and then gives us a kiss for life. Like the intimate picture of almost mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Only this isn't resussing, it's sussing. Right? It's giving life. And it's intimate. And he is involved. He's not a drive-by creator. And chapter 2 really shows it. So then he makes this human, and he makes a very special place to put this human. The Garden of Eden. Beautiful place. Trees. Notice what it says about the trees. Trees are pleasant to the eyes. What does that mean?
Good looking.
Even, let's unpack a little more. It is good looking, but what does that mean for us? It's beautiful. What does beauty do? It does what? Attracts? Yes, it does. But it also, I don't know if you've ever seen some beautiful scenes, but you almost drink in a taste of life. I come from the Pacific Northwest, man, and that is beautiful. You stand there in awe when you see those mountains blue with snow on them, and they're in both directions, and hills and green trees and water, and it's so beautiful that it's taking your breath away.
The reflection of the Creator.
Isn't that funny? It's life-giving, but we say it's taking our breath away. It's so amazing that it infuses us with a sense of life. So this place, these trees, all you got to do is look outside, and what do we say in the fall? Man, how beautiful they are. And there's something about just seeing beauty that adds life. And he creates a place that's special for that. And in the center of this place is what?
The tree.
What tree?
Tree of life.
Right in the
Talking about
center, in the
life.
midst. Think about God. What does that say about him?
He's right in the center.
He's right in the center, but he is a God of life, and he puts life right at the center. And there's this other tree, this cotton picking tree. You know,
If that's the way
I'm
want to
telling
put
you,
it.
at first I was like, this tree. If only God hadn't put that there. But then I think, the life giver, the valuer, the treasurer,
No.
he put it there for love, which means whatever he did was for life. Even putting that tree there, not for death. We read it for death because we're reading backwards from a fallen viewpoint onto it. But now we're going to read it, we're getting rid of that view, we bulldoze that view, and we're starting again and saying, then the reason God put this tree here must have been for life. Because he's life giver. There is no place where we see that he's a death giver. And he is doing something to prepare for something ahead. Because God is wise. So, he creates the man, hand makes him, blows into his nostrils the breath of life, which means this was an intentional act by God to give man a life that was even different. And when he blew into his nostrils the breath of life, he put him into this beautiful place, this garden of delight, the one where water runs, and water is about life and so forth. This was to be a place of life. And then he gives him a relational boundary. Command. Said, of all the trees, all of them you may freely eat, including what trees? Tree of? The tree of life. God gave him a command. You can eat from the tree of life. In fact, not only you can eat from the tree of life, what is God really saying? More than that, you think about God. I want you to eat from the tree of life. That's why I put it there. You can, was it out of bounds? You couldn't touch that tree?
No.
No, in fact, he said that you can freely eat from that, and all the trees, but one.